Let's try the theory in practice and animate a waving blade of grass. Open up the scene file called Assignment Section 06. Here in the center of our scene, we have the blade of the grass, and of course, currently we are able to select it, which we don't want. So don't forget to turn off all the selectability options except for the NURBS curves before animating. Make sure your timeline is set to 24 frames, and we only need this amount of frames because we'll be making another cycle animation. Check if your auto key option is turned on, and also let's quickly go to the settings and make sure that in our time slider settings tab, our frame rate is set to 24 frames per second, as well as the playback speed. And in the animation settings tab, make sure you have your default in and out tangents set to auto ease, or auto if you don't have an auto ease option in your Maya version. Since the blade of grass will be going in one axis from left to right and from right to left, we won't be needing the perspective mode, only the orthographic one. So let's go to the front camera mode and work from there. Here in this viewport, we're able to see the bone chain that is part of our rig responsible for rotating parts of the weed. But since we have controls attached to them which we can animate, we won't be needing the bones, so we should hide them. Let's go to the Show menu and click on None, then select the NURBS curves and polygons. Next, we're ready for animating. On the first frame, we want our weed to form a C shape. Let's select the first control at the bottom and rotate it to the left. We'll only be using the Rotate Z channel. All the other channels are locked. Now we can select all the rest of the controls and rotate them a little bit to the right. Then let's deselect the bottom one control and rotate the controls a little bit further. Then deselect another one from the bottom and rotate the rest even further. Now, just to be sure that we keyed everything, let's select all the controls and hit the S on the first frame. We also want to have the same pose on our last frame, so go to frame 24 and hit the S again to create a key. On frame 12, we want our weed to have an opposite shape. So to make things easier, let's first select all the controls and type in a value of 0 in the Rotation Z channel box, so we can start from this neutral pose. Now let's select the bottom control again and rotate it only this time to the right. Then select all the other controls and rotate them a little bit to the left. Then deselect the bottom one and continue rotating the rest. Then deselect another one and rotate the selected controls even further to the left. Now we have our main poses. If we play the animation, we can see the blade of grass just jumping from one pose to another, left and right. But it's a very mechanical motion, and we need to build in some overlap to it. In order to add some overlap, let's go 5 frames in and add an in-between pose. We know that as the bottom part is going to the right side, the tip of the grass will still be going to the left. So here on frame 5, we need to rotate things a little bit. Select the controls around the middle part and rotate them this way. Then select the rest at the top and rotate them the opposite way. So we have a nice curve. So now if we scrub this part of the animation, we can see the tip of the grass going to the left as the bottom is going to the right. Then in 2 frames, we want to break this curve and flip the tip of the grass to the other side so that it starts going towards the same direction as the bottom. Select the controls at the top and rotate them to the left. Now the tip of our blade seems to be going the same way as the bottom, only a few frames later because it is dragging. Here on frame 12, the bottom of our grass has reached its position on the right and will start moving to the left now. So we know that the tip will continue going further to the right as a follow-through. So here on this part of the animation, we need to repeat the same steps, only rotate the things the opposite way. Let's go 5 frames in and rotate these 2 controls to the right and these top controls to the left side. Two frames further, the tip of the grass flips to this side and continues going to the left as well as the bottom. All right, we have our main motion, but it's not polished yet. We need to make sure that our blade of grass is making a nice smooth shape and its path of action is making sort of a figure 8. We need to track the tip of the grass and check whether it has a continuous flow without any small changes of direction. So let's start from the beginning and follow the tip of the grass. We see that it is moving to the left, but here on frame 5 it goes back a little bit to the right, even though later it will continue moving left. So from frame 1 to frame 7, we want our tip to continuously move to the left without any little changes of direction, because that would disrupt the flow and make our animation look bumpy. Let's select a few controls at the top and shift select their keyframes and move them 1 frame earlier. Now, if we check the path of action of our grass, we see that its tip will continuously move to the left like we wanted. We know that the same thing will happen on the other side of the grass wave, so let's check. And here we see that on frame 17, we have the same change of direction of our tip. So we see that the tip was going to the right from frame 12. It was moving to the right, and here it changed direction for 1 frame to the left. Then it went back to the right and continued that way. We need to fix that, so keep your top control selected and shift select your keys and move them a frame earlier, so that our tip of the grass would not change direction. Now we should have a pretty smooth path, but we can check that by using the grease pencil. Select this pencil icon at the top of our viewport. Then, before adding a frame for the grease pencil, double-click on this red pencil icon to the left to bring up its settings and make sure you have the Auto Create Frames option turned off. You don't want to have this box ticked, so turn it off, and now you can click on this plus sign to create a frame for the grease pencil. Here you can change its color if you want. Let's also select the marker instead of the pencil so that we could create a clearer dot. Let's follow the tip motion and mark its positions. Currently, we are not able to see the mark because we turned everything off on the Show menu. So let's go there and turn on the visibility for the grease pencil so that we can see what we're marking. Now let's click on the tip of the grass to create a dot there and move throughout the timeline and mark every position of the tip. As we move along, we can see that it is making a sort of figure 8, but it could be improved. The shape is a little bit jagged, and I want it to be more rounded at this part. So let's say on frame 9, I'll select my 3 topmost controls and rotate them even more. Maybe even the 4th one. Let's check how that changes the path. So from frame 7 to 9, let's mark the new positions of the grass tip. I like this shape much better because now it's creating this rounded shape before it was creating this spiky one. What I did on frame 9, I should repeat on the other side. So on frame 21, I will select 4 controls at the top and I'll rotate them together. Now I'll track the new motion. So on frame 19, the tip is here, then here, and here. All right, we can also try to use another method instead of the grease pencil, which we've tried at one of our first classes, and that is a motion trail. So select the top control, go to Visualize, and select Create Editable Motion Trail. Another thing we need to make sure of is that the motion trail visibility is turned on in our Show menu. Okay, so now we are able to see the shape its motion path is creating, and of course we could spend more time trying to make it even smoother. And you can do that if you want to. But for now, it was enough to see how the overlapping action works and looks like. In the next lesson, we'll try to create a hand swing, which you saw as an example at the beginning of this section. We'll see how the different joints change direction at different times, that way creating an overlapping action and smooth arcs of motion.